crazy week this first week, especially since we're crammed 5 days into 4. So I appreciate that you made it here. The first thing we have on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the April meeting. Does anyone have any changes or edits? Okay. I believe that this comes from the Senate, the Executive Committee, so we don't need a motion, right? Just ask to be approved. Correct. All right. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. The minutes are approved. So, the next thing that we have on the agenda is the suggestions for changes to the bylaws. Here we go. This motion is also from the Faculty Senate Executive Committee, so it doesn't need a second. And the reason that we worked on this was because we needed to clean up some issues in the bylaws. There have been some changes to names of administrative positions on campus, and there are also some recommendations from the Committee on Committees. Once the ad hoc mapping committee submitted their report last spring, the Committee on Committees reviewed that and then made some suggestions which would affect the bylaws. And then also that means that affects the committees that were developed over the summer. So that's what we have to do this first. And then there were some changes to address policy. So they're presented by, as I said, the Executive Committee for discussion and vote. I'd like to mention a couple of things that were brought up. One of the things is the style of them. I went through, and I really wish I had it now. I went through this whole thing and capitalized stuff. It turns out that most of my stuff was wrong. However, I have an offer from University Relations to make the bylaws fit university style, which is AP style, once we approve them. So if you can approve them with those, with that caveat that they're going to fix it for us, and just ignore where P is capitalized and shouldn't be and that type of thing, they're going to fix it for us. Okay. And then also something else. Oh, there's been a recommendation that got left off is that the dean of the library get added to the learning environment committee because that was left off. That position was left off, and I guess because it's from the executive committee, I will always put that as a name and if everyone is okay with that. So, okay, and I think it should say dean of the library or designee. Which we changed throughout the bylaws. The reason we did that is because, for instance, Provost Answorth cannot serve on the number of committees that he has, or go to all those meetings that it says, but he can't have the associate advice and other provosts in his office attend in this place, especially the ones that deal with the specific issues of that committee. So, also, I just need to mention this, the pending the handbook approval by our full faculty on September 26th, and also the Board of Trustees in October. There's going to have to be more bylaw changes, but I don't want to do anything with them until the handbook gets, if it gets approved, is approved by the Board of Trustees. So there's things that could possibly have to be changed because of handbook changes, but we're not going to address those with these changes. So, discussion. How about I give more detail? Yes, Mike.
Hey, Rich. I have a question with regard to the Learning Environment Committee.
Yes.
It's merging the Classroom Technology Committee and the Learning Support Committee. I served on the Learning Support Committee last year. It appeared to be a catch-all for like a half dozen or 8 different areas. Are we merging all of those with the Classroom Technology Committee and now making it even more scattered sort of approach? The recommendation from the Committee on Committees was to streamline this. There's a couple things that go along with this. The previous 2 committees you're talking about, classroom technology, which would only deal with the technology in the classrooms. It's not dealing with the entire learning environment, whether you need technology or not, whether you need tables with wheels, whether you need a better whiteboard, whether you need, it only deals with classroom technology. And then we had the learning support and auxiliary services, which also dealt with things that you need for learning. And then they had merged in there this auxiliary thing when we got rid of the auxiliary services committee several years ago. I'm actually not sure when that happened. The issue is that we don't have any power
to make changes to auxiliary services. We can make recommendations, but we don't have any power for that. In fact, it's not in our purview as a faculty. And we do serve on auxiliary committees. There are people on the bookstore committee. There are people on, what did I just get invited to? Gary, I wish she was here. I just got invited to something about campus committee for like landscaping and that kind of thing. So we do serve on those committees, but as a being a committee of the faculty that specifically dealt with auxiliary services, it was outside of our purview. So really the focus of learning environment is to deal with what we need to have the best experience for our student learners, whether it be online, whether it be in the classroom. And their charge for this year, the chair is Lisa Smalley. Lisa Burke-Smalley. She, their charge for this year is to basically clarify exactly what they're going to be looking at. So for instance, just to let you know, I had someone ask me about putting up a periodic table in the classroom on campus. I am a chemist, that's really important to me. They've been told that they can't put that up. To me, that would be a learning environment issue. Like if you can't make a classroom the best environment for your class, that would be something they could take up. And I did it, I said it to Lisa. Other questions? Yeah.
Just a few things here.
If you wouldn't mind, can you say like the page or the...
This is my page 3. This is under section 2, just above where it says article 2.
I just missed it was back there, wasn't it? Yes, okay.
Okay, there's this part about that has been scratched. You have, it is the responsibility of the President of the Senate to transmit to the Chancellor within 2 working days any Senate or full faculty recommendations requiring the approval of the office. And the Chancellor's decisions will be communicated to the President of the Senate within 8 working days. So you're proposing to scratch that, and I'm wondering what the justification is.
Okay, there's a couple things. First off, the minutes have not been approved at that point. And so we discussed this as the executive committee, that having that as a deadline when the minutes haven't been approved is not reasonable. The other thing is, if you look further up, I believe we added in, once minutes are approved, the dated recommendation is forwarded to the appropriate office. And the reason that we did that was because not everything that the Senate votes on goes to the Chancellor's office. Some of the things go to other places. And so this streamlines the wording and catches every place that stuff needs to go instead of sending everything to the Chancellor.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I mentioned to you by email earlier was this business of membership in the Senate, kind of how it arises by trying to distribute it across various ranks. And one thing I came across years ago was in trying to get representatives of associate professors. We found that is like the smallest pool of professors, and that was something to challenge. And I'm wondering, instead of trying to get 2 from each rank, we think maybe more flexibly about maybe having associates and full professors lumped together, and maybe, say just get 4 of those or something instead of 2 of each. Because I think that the concerns of tenured associate professors will not be that dissimilar from the concerns of tenured full professors. I do see where there's a difference. You need to have a division between assistants and certainly untenured faculty. But if we just kind of lumped associates maybe together with full, that might give us some flexibility.
So my recommendation is going to be that we ask the handbook committee, once they finish their handbook deliberations, to take this up on what changes need to be made to the bylaws. Mainly because currently we have the Senate that we need for this year, and so those changes aren't so dire that we need to get it done right now. And I think that I would like to have some data on how many assistant professors and associate professors there are on campus and how they're distributed in the colleges, because I think that also affects the decision. Sure. So if you would be all right if we could put that off as a for the handbook committee when they deal with what we need to do to the bylaws.
Yeah. Sure.
other?
Yeah, I have another.
Okay.
This is page 4.
So right below where you just were?
Yeah, the paragraph that begins on, there it is, on
Yes.
March 1st. I was looking at this business about how you've added this business D, non-tenure track lectures, faculty. But if I recall, if I read it right, we're extending the length of the term to 2 years on those. Does it make sense to have visiting faculty serve a 2-year term?
So it has to deal with what that non-tenure track faculty classification encompasses.
Right.
So we could say except visiting faculty, but all of that is there as a clarification of who fits in that classification according to campus. So certainly as we elect, I think people would take that into account as to whether or not someone is a visiting faculty member or someone who is here currently. Actually, lecturers or currently, I believe, are yearly contracts. Has that changed? Yeah. So they're somewhat at some point 1 year also, though
Right.
tend to be much longer than
And that's why the non-tenure track faculty terms were limited to the sentence.
Absolutely. However, I thought that this would streamline the process for not having to elect someone every year if they were here for 2 years or more. And if they did leave the university, then we have procedure for replacing them. But what that does is it gives someone with experience on the Senate so they've been on it for 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we could try it, but that was the logic.
Certainly, I think, yeah.
I think that's, oh, I know. We got rid of the scholarships committee. So,
Oh, I have an address for you if you'd like to know about that.
yeah.
Yes, okay. So the committee was, well, the long history for people who don't know, we had academic standards and academic scholarship committee. Those were 2 separate committees. Then a couple years ago, they were merged together. So the last couple years of academic standards and scholarships have simply been them meeting once a year to vote on the Brock Scholars for the honors college, which is actually does not follow what all the other colleges do, because all the other colleges have scholarships and they don't bring their scholarships to the scholarship committee. And I also feel as if the colleges have gone through this process of finding who they want to give scholarships to. Why should this arbitrary committee of faculty on campus meet for 30 minutes to decide if they approve these scholarships, when all this other work has already gone into it? So based on the recommendation for a committee on committees, we removed that component because those scholarships are not being reviewed. What's not being done is the academic standards portion of it, and we want to make sure that that does get done. And so we have written a charge that Faculty Senate exec actually is supposed to write a charge for every committee every year, and we have written a charge and sent that to every committee chair so that they have something that they need to be doing, because we shouldn't have a committee just to have a committee, they should actually be needed. So that was the reason we did that.
Well, having chaired the scholarship committee before, I can tell you that if they do the job as described in the handbook, it's more than just rubber stamping whatever the honors college puts forward. It should be an opportunity for the faculty to oversee how chancellor scholars are awarded, how provost scholarships are awarded, and indeed to get a big picture as to how all of the scholarships are being awarded. If for no other reason than to just have, let's say, Nancy come in and say, well, this is the way we're packaging it this year, or this is a new scholarship program, and let's run it by a few other eyes before we institute this particular scholarship program and see whether you guys see any downside to this. I'm thinking of the gold scholarship, for instance. There's now no more, but we tried it, and I'm just wondering if there had been faculty oversight over some of this stuff. We could just have a better handle on what's going on and fulfill the faculty role as oversight of scholarships. So
I went back and read all the minutes and from the previous couple of years before we made these had these conversations. And Yancey had been presenting once, so and they still had only been meeting once, and he'd been presenting the information. I still stand by, and I think the executive committee will back me. It would feel like that part of the committee should go away. If we want to invite Yancey to come to Senate and ask him to present anything, that's certainly something that we can do since he is over enrollment services. And I'd be happy to invite him to come and talk to us, and maybe we can consider an alternate committee. But I feel from what I've read and from what I've heard that that committee is no longer functioning in the way that it needs to be functioning, and that's been for several years. And we want to make sure that every committee that we have is effective.
But it's a question of enforcement. You got to make the committee do what it's supposed to do. And
you want me to make you as a faculty member do what I want you to do? I think your answer to that is no.
So, well, by telling people, by telling the committee chairs, this is your charge, this is what it says in the bylaws or whatever, we expect you to adhere to this kind of thing.
So are you recommending a motion to remove that? Will that change?
I don't think it's that onerous, especially it can continue to meet once a year. If you keep it wedded to the standards committee. I mean, it's not like you, if I understand you correctly, the standards committee isn't overwhelmed by business anyway. Is that correct?
As a side, the Honors College, I met with the Honors College and they agreed with me and they no longer want to bring their...
I'm sure they don't.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we should say, okay, forget it.
So I ask again, are you putting a motion forward to ask that we do not change the standards and scholarship committee as indicated in the bylaws?
Correct.
Okay, is there a second for that motion? Okay, we have a second, so discussion.
Just one piece, and this may actually go back prior to, one of the other things that I don't think has come up yet that Committee on Committees has recommended, and we actually found language about, is that Committee on Committees has been charged with, throughout the year, populating any ad hoc committees that occur. It sounds like what you're asking for, Gavin, is if changes occur in the standing scholarships. I'm wondering if that would be something that change in a standing scholarship would jump off one of those ad hoc committees, as opposed to having a year after year when it's not needed except in certain years. So I'm not sure how I'm aware of that, but.
So for them, you may not be aware, we had 141 spots on faculty committees, and there were 275 people who completed the faculty committee survey. So we had a very difficult time populating committees. We did overpopulate them. I personally emailed over 30 people and asked them to take a break from committees for the year. And they were very happy. And then I have about 20 people who are on the ad hoc list. And that ad hoc list is the first place that we would go to should someone need a committee to review something. The people are on that list. And it's posted on the committee list website at the bottom. That's what that was. Other discussion.
So yeah, I'm not sure if I understand, because this is what this committee is even set up for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I understand I don't have a history of honors college, all of that.
The scholarships committee actually predates the honors college, of course. And it was designed not just to track those scholarships determined by the honors program and later the college, but to in fact serve as an oversight committee for all university administered scholarships outside of the ones given federally, right? And it specifies that. And it's not a big deal. I mean, traditionally it just means you call in a couple administrators from financial aid and they review what the current status is of those scholarships. How many are we giving? It allows the faculty an opportunity to ask questions about changes that have been made, and changes are made every year, it seems, to the scholarships. Just to, again, fulfill our function as an oversight body for everything involved with our students. And by abrogating that, as we have abrogated a review of final exam schedules, for instance, which we did a couple of years ago, I'm worried that we are shooting ourselves in the foot. Yeah, it's not a big deal. I don't see that. I didn't have a problem when it was mushed into the standards committee. It's one meeting a year where they could just review the scholarships. And then everybody can say, great, the faculty reviewed the scholarships. For the most part, it is a rubber stamping operation. But at least it results in more administrative reporting to the faculty about proposed ways of distributing money.
I guess if we're gonna vote on that motion, we probably need to do hands and count.
I just have one quick question in regards to Kevin's comments in terms of oversight. Is if you're only spending 30 minutes once a year, how do you actually achieve oversight?
But usually the chair of the scholarships committee asks well in advance of the meeting for paperwork from financial aid. And they'll print out a report on scholarships. And the committee gets to review that before the actual meeting.
And my question is just not my own ignorance, but in terms of that, what would you be expecting as a discrepancy coming from financial aid that would lead the scholarship committee to decide or to look at that there might be some ill or wrongdoing in the awarding or the execution?
Wouldn't be so much wrongdoing that we'd be worried about. Right.
But you know what I'm saying? Like something that would not necessarily pass the sniffing.
Do we have the money necessary to sustain a 4-year scholarship over the course of 4 years and beyond? Do we really have that money? That kind of thing.
Anything else? Okay, so first, this would be just a vote on the motion to not accept those changes in the bylaws for the standards and scholarship committee. So, but with that caveat, I would say that if there's changes for administration and the composition that needs to be fixed based on we no longer have an assistant provost or we, that's what I'm saying. I hope that could still be in there. So, okay.
Point of order, or point of clarification. What exactly are we voting?
We are voting on Gavin's motion that we do not accept the changes for the section in academic standards and scholarships and bylaws. Okay, so that's all. We're not voting on the bylaws, just on that one section. Okay, so those who support Gavin's motion of not changing that committee, please raise your hand. Okay. Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that motion fails. Is there any other thing in the bylaws that people would like to see discussed? Yes.
I have never asked you to suggest that on the faculty grants, instead of being at least one member representing each equity college, that we have at least one member representing each division. I'm just thinking.
Speaking from experience of populating from committee on committees, that would be extremely difficult. Jody, would you?
That's really hard. It's what you get into when I have these requirements for every division is sometimes you may have the same volunteer from a certain division and you can't have people serve more than 3 years on the committee, and maybe people need to be moved. If you only have one volunteer from, say, math and science, or one volunteer that's qualified to serve, or one volunteer for business, then you're begging people to serve. And granted, faculty grants isn't the hardest committee, but there tend to be volunteers for certain disciplines that volunteer for that committee more than others. And when you start putting requirements on committees that get into divisions versus colleges, it's a nightmare for the person populating.
So that's really just arts and science.
No, not necessarily. I'm just saying, really on that division.
Yeah. It is difficult in arts and science. Also, because some divisions are actually quite small, like fine arts, is art, theater, and music. It's not huge. It's not huge. I mean, you know that. So it's not a huge one. So we're going to demand. So, for instance, one of the committees I had from the 4 academic colleges, and then I was going to put the library. But I spoke with Teresa, and she said, no, we don't have enough people to have somebody on all those things. So Aye. Anything else? All right, so this comes from Faculty Senate Executive Committee, so we don't need seconds or anything. I call a question. All in favor for the bylaw changes, say aye, or should we need to count? Let's do count. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you. Sorry. All those opposed? Abstentions. Okay, so the motion passes. So we had to do that first so that we could have our organizational meeting. I'm going to go back to the bylaws. To the agenda. So organizational meeting. Welcome. So typically the organizational meeting is, according to the old bylaws, is supposed to happen after the last Senate meeting of, like, right immediately after. The problem is that you haven't, I'm actually officially president until July 1st. So having it at that time actually kind of goes against it. Also, we have a really hard time getting all the senators in place by that point. Also, you're supposed to approve committees at that point. And I will tell you that I worked through the first week of August as committee on committees chair to get all the committees in place, twisting arms and getting people to be chairs. So that is really not feasible. And we just changed it in the bylaws. So thank you so much. Welcome to the organizational meeting of the Senate. So one of the things that we need to do, and welcome to the new Senate members. If it's all right with you, I think we'll not introduce everybody. You can enjoy some cookies and coffee afterwards. So the thing that also happens at the organizational meeting is we confirm the faculty senate officers, the vice president, and the secretary. And I hope we're okay with our secretary because he's been diligently working so far. So those positions are selected by the president and then forwarded to the Senate for confirmation by the senators. So I submit to you that I'd like to have Dr. Beth Crawford as our vice president and Dr. Brooke Oglesby as our secretary for confirmation. Do I ask for confirmation? Do I ask for discussion?
Yeah, you have to ask for confirmation.
No, that I know. Do we need to have discussion beforehand? That's what I was. Okay. All right. Well, so all in favor of confirmation of those two officers serving? I think we could just say aye. Yeah. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Parliamentarian. I've been lucky to finagle us a parliamentarian from the Senate this year, and it is Don, who's in the back there. He's a representation from College of Engineering and Computer Science. Got him a little handout on being parliamentarian, and also he's been working with Jim Houston over the summer, so hopefully we will be in good order for most of the time. But I'm sure that he will accept any recommendations you have. Right, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. So also based on these bylaw approvals, we need to ask for you to approve the faculty committees that are posted on the Faculty Senate website for the year. It was written all over that these are pending bylaw approvals and approvals of the Senate. So I put those forward to you for confirmation. All in favor of confirmation of those populations, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes. Administrative reports. Provost Ainsworth.
I want to welcome you too, and I appreciate, first I can say thank you for a great year last year. We had a great year. We're off to a good year this year. We got great enrollment this year, about 2,100 freshmen. I don't want to spend a lot of your time. We've got a lot of business, but I did want to bring an update relative to general education, just so you kind of know where we are. Since I got somebody taking minutes, I wanted to at least dispel the rumor that I'm determining what general education is. That's not my job. That is
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
We are also recording the meeting.
Oh, good. That's even better. On YouTube before you know it. But I did want to dispel that because this is general education purview of the faculty. Faculty need to be involved in that. As we transition to this next year, we have two individuals off this task force that will be serving as our co-chairs. Eve Lewis, who is IR. We try to have somebody on the registrar administrative side. She's IR. She can provide all the data we need, which is really important. And then from Arts and Sciences, Stuart Bickford is going to serve as co-chair. we anticipate that probably sometime early September, mid-September, we hope to have a bigger town hall forum where we can actually have more data to show you what we got in Gen Ed. But I want to just reemphasize, I think I went back and looked, and sometime in November of last year, I presented what we were trying to do. The faculty senate voted that we would do that, approve that process. Once again, what we're looking for and what we're trying to do is establish what would be essentially an appropriately, easily navigatable general education for our students, one that meets the needs of their majors, ensures we don't have courses that are in there that perhaps should not be. I mean, we got some 3,000, 4,000 courses in Gen Ed. We've got a couple of courses actually that require prerequisites that don't count as Gen Ed. You have to take the prerequisites before you can take your Gen Ed. Those are simple issues, but I think we can look at this. I have no desire to destroy Gen Ed. That's not my goal. In fact, I've said on numerous occasions, and I think it's worth saying here, if Gen Ed has to serve as the foundation for every degree we offer. Now, I had somebody say, oh, no, it doesn't. I said, but how can it not? We're talking about communication, we're talking about quantitative skills, and we're talking about cultural understanding. I mean, that's in broad sense, that's Gen Ed. That's Gen Ed. And if a student can take Gen Ed course in their senior year, my question is, one, is it a Gen Ed course, or is it a major issue that we're not tracking and expecting more in our major courses for general education? How many of you don't have to raise your hand, but we expect students to be able to write. Do you grade students when they write for you on how they write or just on the content? And I've had conversations with folks in the College of Business. We've had other conversations trying to say, how do we mesh this so that Gen Ed truly is the foundation and we continue to grow that as they get through their major, so we have the kind of graduates that we would want to have. Not that we don't have good ones, but we want to make them the best they can be. So I look forward to working with you. Obviously, I have no vote in this. I am the provost. I have to implement what we decide we want to implement. We have Gen Ed now, so don't think that I'm saying it's bad or that we're throwing it out. All I'm asking us to do is take a look at it. Another reason for that, my final comment, is we will be coming up for our decanal. Every 10 years, we come up for a cycle with SACs. They expect us to do this. And so we now are at a point where we can do this and not be under the gun. We've got about 4 years before we have to have a report in. So we're really good. We did our 20th-year report. We went through with flying colors. No issues there. In fact, I think they had to look for one to be able to write one down on us. And you did really great. We did great. And so we want to be prepared so that we're not doing this in the last couple of years when we're really seriously trying to put that full report together. So I want to ask you to be involved. I've had individuals from colleges other than arts and sciences. I had one say to me, well, that's kind of a Gen Ed. It really doesn't affect us. And I'm like, no, we'll do that. Because Gen Ed affects every student you've got. And so everyone needs to be a part of this process. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. As we look through it, our timeline was to try to get to some point by May of 2018. I still would like to see us do that. I got to tell you, you know as well as I do, we can take 4 steps forward and May comes around and next September we'll be 2 steps back. And we'll constantly be in this system of trying to get our Gen Ed done. And I don't want to do that to you, and you don't need to do it because you've got other things. But I hope you'll participate. I hope you'll be a part of that discussion. I hope you will help us determine how do we make this easily navigatable? How do we ensure that a course is taken in Gen Ed for a particular major will work in another major? They don't have to change course and all of a sudden take extra Gen Ed courses. That's all we're really about, making sure that we can ensure success for our students. And Gen Ed is where they start. Gen Ed is where they start. So I appreciate it. I think what I know you're going to do this year for us, and I'll leave it at that. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you.
I will take anybody's question. I'll sort of take that real quick. What do you think?
What are the ways that we participate? I know there's a task force. Do you have any come up with any plans for feedback?
We obviously need that. We had a series of town halls that really got started so late last semester, Steve. We didn't get a lot of that input. And that's one reason I said I hope in early September, mid-September, we can come forward and really have a major town hall, something where we can really, where you're not just coming to talk about it, but we can show you the data on what is occurring. I mean, for example, I did something a couple years ago. Many of you heard this, but we have 177 Gen Ed courses. 49 of those courses comprise 80% of all the Gen Ed that's taken. So we've got another 128 courses sitting out there that are just kind of smattering of courses. And so one way to look at that is perhaps some of those courses could be combined. Maybe there's a role there. I don't know. I'm just saying there may be ways to look at that. So feedback is certainly, I think mid-September we'll have a better feel for that, but we hope to do something early mid-September. In fact, I was having a conversation with Eve Lewis today, saying we got to get that put together. She's got part of that started, but we certainly want to lay that out because we may not actually present some of the data that you want. And we need to hear from you on that so that we can also provide that kind of information. So absolutely, feedback. In fact, I would not see this group working in isolation. I would see their meetings being open where it might be like a faculty senate. They're sitting up here working. There are other folks out there counting the gallery that who can weigh in on those. But we'll need everybody's input. Hopefully we would have some kind of, I can call it straw man of some sort that in the spring people could really throw darts at and help us determine what would work. But I can't suggest a time because this is not an easy lift. It's not a small lift. But at the same time, I know for the sake of the faculty, we need to get on with it, get it done so that we can move that on. You can deal with those things. That's a good question, though. We certainly need everybody's input. Great. I'll get out of here. Thank you.
I believe next we have curriculum. Oh, you didn't have anything, right? I think so. We talked ahead of time, so I knew, but it looked like he was getting up. So chair of the curriculum committee is Charlene. Thank you so much for agreeing to serve again.
So last year, we had a lot of proposals come through at the very end of the year. And I think I brought some of 25 in April. And in the rush to get that last list together, we left 7 off, which is why I bring to you 7 proposals from last fall that for you all to approve. They did go through the faculty curriculum committee on Tuesday, and they were unanimously approved in a vote of 8-0 to 0. So there are 7 education proposals. They come from committees, so they do not require seconds. Discussion.
Yes.
Was there any discussion in the curriculum committee regarding these
So
proposals?
there were some questions from people that were new to the committee because they had never seen them before.
Right.
And they asked about some of these proposals reference other classes that had already been approved. They had gotten through in April. So they were asking, did that, they asked about, did these other proposals go through? Yes. Every proposal that's mentioned in any of those all got through last April. So that was about the only question we had. It was kind of new people getting a feel for where people stood and where these, because this was education set through a very large number, and many of them were interrelated, and unfortunately these 7 got separated.
Any other discussion? All right, so seeing nothing else, I guess we will take a vote, and you do need hands on this. So if you approve the committee proposals, please raise, or sorry, the curriculum proposals, please raise your hand. It should be 29. Everyone's, let's do it the other way. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just a couple of quick other things. Gretchen had charged our committee with figuring out why we had so many late proposals. And we will be working on that, but there are 2 sticking points that stood out to us all year last year. One of them was College of Arts and Sciences Curriculum Committee, and I've already spoken with Matt Matthews, and they will be working faster to get their proposals through. They have a deadline December 1st, so that then the University Curriculum Committee can get them to you all by your first meeting in January. So hopefully that will work. The other sticky point is related departments. So when proposals are put through, they are often highlighted that they impact another department, and so then it requires the other department head's approval, and those often get stuck where, for whatever reason, they do not get approved for once on ends. And that is a major sticking point. So if you are a department head, or if you can pass the word on to your department head, or if you sit above department heads and can pass the word down to them, We really need department heads to regularly check their inbox on SharePoint and approve the pending curriculum proposals. SharePoint is going to be an interesting transition for us. We do not know what's happening with the new SharePoint. Last October, you all approved recommendations from our committee to change the guidelines for proposals. Those new guidelines were based on the adoption of a new SharePoint, which would have allowed us to introduce new types of proposals based on the kind of proposal, not on formal and informal. We've been working with the old SharePoint since then, so you have to go, it's all online, but what would be a new course proposal still falls under formal proposal. While we are moving to the new SharePoint, we have currently been informed we will be stuck with the old forms for an undisclosed amount of time. So in this next cycle, we will probably still be using the old forms. Last October, you all voted, thankfully, to move, or whenever it was, November, to move the due date. So please be aware and let your own departments aware and let your college aware that the new deadline for fall proposals is October 15th. That is a lot earlier than the previous November 1st. That will help us get the proposals to the Senate by the first meeting in January. So please, with the shift to the new SharePoint as well, it's probably going to be a little more confusing. Please do not wait till October 15th to upload your proposals. If you have any questions during the process, please contact the records office. They really appreciate when people ask them for help during the process. It speeds things up. They will catch the mistakes in the end if you submit it without talking to them, and it slows down the process because they'll kick it back and it goes around and around. So talk to them first so the mistakes don't get in there. And then we will probably at some point this year come back with a change to the guideline proposals because THEC is changing a lot about changes to new programs, and so we will have to adjust to that. So we'll have a lot of other things going on. I will be back next month because in those new guidelines, we did allow spring proposals, and we have 4 or 5 proposals from spring that will come out in the next bunch. So I will be back in September. We look forward to it.
Thanks, Tommy. All right, next we have handbook committee, and Dr. Beth Copper will present that.
Okay, we have 2 chapters to present today, which is chapter 6 and chapter 7. And these have been worked on over the summer. We promised you we would. We did by the committee and by legal counsel and by the system offices. So these chapters come to you from that combined group, system, legal counsel, and the Senate handbook committee. So they thought they would get the summer off, they didn't have.
So at this point, I'll ask for discussion.
Question about chapter 6.
Yes.
I think, and I can't find it in the old chapter 6, so I think there used to be some policies around faculty modified duties assignment or parental leave that was in the appendix, and I can't find the appendix online.
The faculty maternity leave issue is actually a system level issue. I'll find it myself.
A1.
You're talking about the old one though, right?
I'm kind of looking for some clarity as to like where that went, and if it's going to.
Where I know a bit about where it went, and we can certainly ask more questions. A bit of where it went is that that information is now mandated. The thing for pregnancy and child-related leave is actually federally mandated, and so that actually came to us from system after it went to legal counsel to meet the federal guidelines on that one. I'm trying to.
Right, so FMLA is listed under chapter 6, A1. But FMLA is less generous than what was there before. It's like there used to be language about tenure clock and modified duties, and the language was a little fuzzy, like it was like your may.
And our understanding is that that did not fit with federal guidelines that are coming down. And so this is actually all UT policy. This is not UTC policy. We don't have the ability or the purview to override anything that comes from the UT system. So the policy that is related there, the family and medical leave, and included in that is any kind of family leave, pregnancy leave, childbirth, adoption, all of that. And that actually sits under UT policy HR 0338. So this is to inform that it is not actually something that UTC would have any kind of purview to change or revise.
Thank you. I read that policy, and I also looked at what UT has, and their handbook might be out of compliance as well. But
They're being worked on
okay.
at the same time.
They had, in between sick leave and annual leave, they had a section on family care that said that certain line faculty may be eligible for additional benefits such as modifying service requirements and extending tenure track probationary status. Are we going to have something like that?
Whatever we will have for that one will be specifically related to what comes down from the UT systems that is related to the federal. That one is one that we are putting in here, and that's one of the things that as a handbook committee we really struggle with some of these, because some of the things that we're doing, at one point we even just talked about putting the links only because we had no control over them at all. We did then go back and add with the health system and legal some of the basic information that ties to those links, but and Knoxville is out of the current date. It's being changed as we speak.
You talked about federal, like the federal guidelines, aren't they sort of minimum requirements, and there is, you can't go below that, and benefits that are part of the previous handbook, they're going to take away from the is that not something that
But regardless, whatever UT system comes up with, we are part of the UT system, and this is a UT system policy. UTC cannot have a policy on something like that is different from the system policy. We are bound by, so we're putting information in the handbook so that faculty are aware of it and know what those guidelines are. But these are not something, if someone wants to address these kind of concerns, those would happen through the committees that actually can talk to system.
Yeah, the University Faculty Council, we need,
We
the
have
faculty
members
senate
on
presidents
those.
meet once a month to discuss things. So I can bring that forward.
So HR 0338 is about leave, and we used to have language around tenure clock as well. That was in the appendix.
So the tenure information would actually be on the Board of Trustees website. All of the tenure policies come out of Board of Trustees. So those would actually be in Chapter 3. Anything that would to do with tenure.
And we passed Chapter 3 last year.
And but again, that the tenure clock information, there's some leeway in it, but most of it comes straight from the board policy as well. Now, how we do our tenure, how we do our meetings, and how we set up our RTP committees, and how we do all that is the purview of the campus.
So the tenure clock says
There are
provision.
maximum lengths provisioned by the board. And the allowance in Chapter 3 allows for the possibility of doing earlier tenure or someone that did, but we cannot go beyond the years allowed by the board of trustees. We can't extend. We can, if someone's got, Dr. Ainsley.
We can extend, but that's in the case of FMLA or something of that nature for pregnancy, which we have done which I have done. I've done this on a couple of occasions. Right, but the point is, I just want to make sure people understand it can go longer. The period of time you're here, the probationary period is the same, but you may have added time in there that you're not working on tenure because you're out of you're out off the campus. And in fact, when you are on one of those leaves, you are not to work on anything that has to do with your job. If you do, then you're getting additional time to work on tenure that other individuals are not. So, for example, I know of an individual who is pregnant, and say the individual decides, well, I can come in and teach my night class during that time, but I want the rest of the time off. and I'd like my tenure clock stopped. Sorry, can't do it, you're working. And so you have to completely stop everything, but we do that. I have done that.
So one of my other, so first of all, the chapter 3 that we passed last year is not on the website, so I can't even look at it.
So it is, it's posted in the archives of the minutes.
It's not on the website of the handbook because it's not
Oh,
official yet.
okay.
If you look, I'm looking at it right now.
And then you're saying that the tenure clock information has been dropped out of 338, of HR 338?
I don't see it, and I just
So
searched.
that may be a question that we ask that,
Length of probation period is in chapter 3.
as far as there being any allowance for it under FMLA.
Right, so HR
Maybe
0338 is just FMLA, which has nothing to do with tenure clock. So I am concerned as that this would affect our ability to recruit and retain faculty if we don't have anything that is there for parental leave.
Actually, I know that even for graduate students, that part of what's coming down from the federal law, and I only know that because I served on the grad committee and worked on the pregnancy leave for that, it specifically says that your grad clock is extended on the form.
The
So-
policy for the extension is BT 0006. Section C.
So they're related and perhaps.
And there's a link on that chapter 3 that's posted. On the archives.
So that is on the board language is where that sits. Yes.
So is there any language in chapter 6 as proposed that is UTC specific?
That's a good question.
Or is it
Yes,
all mandated?
there's some about dealing with the UTC HR as opposed to all of it being, but it still may adhere to policy, like at the section 3 leaves of absence. Department heads work with HR to make sure that everything complies with policy. So we're still working within our own internal HR, but then they work through the system. The semester banking option in section 3B4. Section, that is a UTC. That is not something that's governed at the system level. Professional development leave, which would include sabbaticals and that is also at the UTC level. But yes, it is very heavy policy weighted.
So I'm sorry, if there's some policy, forgive me, I'm still learning. So if there are some policies that we have control over and some that we don't, it can't be in conflict with the board policies, but we can potentially have other language.
Yeah, we can have specific language that is addressed how we address things on this campus, but specific to the handbook guidelines off the Board of Trustees is nothing we do can be in conflict with either board or system policy. But the board policy does have the information you're asking about.
I'm sorry, I can't find it.
You look on page 6 of chapter 3 that's in the archives, and it's on the bottom of the page, actually a link to that board policy. Any other discussion? All right, so this comes from a faculty senate committee, so I will need to take a vote. I believe we need a hand count on this, right? All right, so I see a show of hands for those who approve the chapter 6 and 7. Oh, we have any questions? I guess.
Sorry, exercise.
Okay, one more time, sorry.
Work those muscles.
Thank you. Those opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you. And Beth will be back.
Oh, we'll be back in September with chapter 5.
Understating my mind.
Yeah.
Back to chapter 5. And I will tell you that all of these will be brought to the full faculty on September 26th for discussion. It was previously approved to have the full vote electronically, but we will have discussion at the full faculty meeting on September 26th. Okay, new business. I actually have some new business for us. It's really quick, as long as we can twist an arm. We need to elect a Senate representative to the graduate council. It has to be a senator, and it needs to be a senator who's in a department that doesn't have a graduate program. So only undergraduate programs. And so who would be interested in serving? Or we have nominations, as long as you can nominate yourself. This is a position that we need to fill, so. Oh,
I'd like to nominate Virginia Carnes.
oh, the library does not have a graduate program, so I think that fits the guidelines. Virginia, would you accept the nomination?
Okay.
Oh. Any other nominations? Okay, I'm gonna close nominations, and as we only have one nominee, let's go ahead and just vote by voice. All those in favor of Virginia being the graduate council representative, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations, Virginia.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any other new business. Does anybody? I don't think. I mean, it's a faculty concern that falls under another area, so I don't think we have any new business from the faculty senate exec. So we'll move on to the next section. It's faculty concerns. Anybody have any faculty concerns? And I'm going to preface this with remind you that as a senator, you represent all the faculty, but especially the people from who elected you. So there's people who are divisional. There's also people who are at large. So you can, at any time, bring a faculty concern to the open forum, or you can bring it to me in my email. I've already had a couple in the last couple days that I'm looking into. Some may be issues that we deal with as an entire Senate. Some may be something that the executive team deals with. So, but if you don't want to mention it in open forum, you can certainly email me about it. Marcus.
This is probably more question for Dr. Ainsworth. If you can provide clarity on the email we received yesterday about the Barnes & Noble contract.
Oh, that was today, I think. From Tyler. Tyler sent it, and you, the chancellor and the provost signed it. It's about Barnes & Noble.
What kind of clarity would you like? We have a contract, and the contract states that we cannot have, as faculty, we cannot steer our students to another source to buy a book by posting a link to that.
Okay.
Now, if you were to say to your students, look, the bookstore's got it, you can buy it anywhere you want to buy it, that's a different situation. It's the idea of breaking the contract by actually posting in your syllabus or on the board when they come in. Here's a link. You can go to Amazon, whatever, or buythelookhere.com. That's where we've had concern, where there are issues. And quite honestly, I learned about this about 2 days ago. So I'm learning this as you're learning it. That Barnes & Noble reviewed and has had some concerns because that's come forward. So we were just trying to make the faculty aware so that we're not in violation of that contract.
Okay, and that's specifically for purchased for items that somebody will actually spending money on outside of the bookstore. Well,
it's a Barnes & Noble contract. The issue that we're speaking to particularly is textbooks.
Right.
It also applies to, I just found out about 2 days ago too, it also applies to electronic materials. So for instance, if you require Top Hat for your class, it has to be available in the bookstore. You can't just give them the link to Top Hat and they can buy it online. So they have to be able to buy the access code at the bookstore. So whoever you're working with, if it's required, then it has to be available at the bookstore. And the other thing to keep in mind is not only a Barnes & Noble contract, but also our students who are on book scholarships can only buy things at the bookstore. So if they have to buy an access code, it has to be at the bookstore. They can't do it through any other method.
May I clarify something though? And I want to make sure I understand what you just said, because I know a lot of us who, for example, do Flower Plus or McGraw-Hill Connect or something like that. And
the way it is embedded or integrated into Blackboard, functionally, there is a link to the textbook. And so, as I understood the way Tyler's email from you was worded, is that, we order the books, do the books, the packets with the material, but it is impossible for us not to provide a link to the publisher, because that's the link to the online homework manager. And some students choose to buy it through that link because it's half the price of the bookstore. We don't tell them you must buy it this way, but the students who have to go through the bookstore go through the bookstore. The students who recognize that it's half the price and realize they can buy it through the link do that, but we can't eliminate the link because the link is to the homework. And the way I read Tyler's email was that what we're doing is okay as long as we're not avoiding going through the bookstore to buy the packets. It's if we're saying there's no book and then making everybody go through the link, that's the problem.
Right.
But if the link is there and the books are in the bookstore with access codes, we're all good. All right?
Yeah, it's the issue of all of a sudden I post a different link up there and send the students to a different link that you could say 50% on this book and not go to Barnes. That's where the issue becomes, because you're steering them away and you're breaking the contract. But if we need more specifics, one, I'm not a contract person and I'm not a legal person from that perspective, so I wouldn't want to state it wrong. But that's my basic understanding, is that as a faculty member, if my book is in the Barnes & Noble, and I say, this is the publisher of that book, and it can be found in Barnes & Noble, and they go to the publisher and find it somewhere else, that's not an issue. It's when I say, why don't you go to Amazon and buy this instead of that's where I'm breaking contract, because I'm steering them somewhere other than Barnes & Noble.
Okay, Claire? I have a question about that also. There have occasionally been situations where the bookstore could not get the material in a timely manner, and like there was something that we needed for a lab, the students were supposed to buy a kit, and the bookstore said we can have it for you in a month. I said we need it next week, and so we told them to buy it elsewhere. Is that a violation if the bookstore can't get it?
Hey, that's a good question, Claire. I'd have to get legal and contractual in on that, because to me it would seem like you can't stop the learning process because we have to go through a particular hole to get the book. We've got to be able to get the book to the students, or the learning pack or the lab pack to it. So I get your point, and I would have done just what you did or somebody did, but I would rather have legal or contractual on campus really clarify that for you than me try to.
Well, hopefully those are rare situations, but they do occur.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I would like to say, encourage everybody. We are supposed to get our book requests in during the middle of the semester prior to the semester that you are planning on using those materials, and that should give the bookstore enough time to get the materials. Anything else? Okay, I have a couple of announcements. So the first thing is to talk to you a little bit about Founders Day. So for those of you who may or may not be familiar with Founders Day is September 15th. And the university is basically celebrating it for an entire week. There's a website which I will share with Birch, and we'll post it on the Practice Connect website. I'm also going to send an email to all the faculty after this meeting to let them know about it. But there's a whole bunch of activities that are going on. One of the things I'd like to highlight is, of course, the service awards. I just noticed it was in my mail. I'm 15 years this year, so the service awards are earlier this year. They're on Tuesday, September 12th. You know, they recognize everyone for their 5, 10, 15, every 5 years of service. So they're incorporating that. They're having the They're having the scholarship luncheon. This is a dinner. There's a pep rally on Thursday on Chamberlain Field. But the things that kind of are important for us are the State of the University is happening on Friday. That actually is Founders Day at 12 p.m. I believe the location is still to be announced. But that will be on Friday at 12 p.m. And then also, we have something pretty exciting. The student development is hosting into that weekend, Family Fall Weekend. And that's, all the students' families come for the weekend. And on this Friday night, they have a reception at the IMAX at 7:30. they've invited the faculty to this reception, but we have a limited amount of spots for our faculty. So I need people to RSVP to me by next Thursday if they would like to attend. It is food, lots of food. It's coming from Big River, and also an IMAX movie. So that's why the spots are limited, because the movie theater can only hold so many people, and they need spots for the families. So I will be sending an email out after this meeting to all the faculty to invite them. So if you're interested in attending or you know someone, have them email me so that I can get contact. Okay. Another one that I just skipped past. I didn't realize I missed it. I'm sorry. On the agenda, there is a parking. There it is. Parking focus group. So the parking services is going to be looking at making changes to parking for next year. So this is 2018, 2019. But in order for that to happen, they have to have all the decisions made, I believe it's by the end of September. So in order for that to happen, they would like our input, because of course it affects us immensely. So they have scheduled 2 meetings for us to attend. They're for Faculty Senate, ERC, which is Employee Relations Council, and ESC, which is Exempt Staff Council. So we've all been invited to this meeting, so you can give the parking services inputs. And as we're recording this meeting, I've offered my services, so I'll be recording those too, so we'll post them for you if you can't attend. And both those meetings are the same. So it's basically, they're giving you 2 opportunities. You can't go to one, pick the other. Okay. Got an email today that the Homecoming Week office is sponsoring a decorating competition for decorating your office doors. And they would really like for us to participate. I know, I think it's, I think we're trying to increase spirit here on campus. It would be exciting if you do participate. They have guidelines, which I can post on the Senate website to share. And also they're posted on BoardSeek. The deadline to sign up is September 27th. And then the next week is actually Homecoming Week, where they'll be judging doors and that kind of stuff. So finally, tomorrow at 3:30 is a blue gold picture on Chamberlain Field. They're trying to get all of us, everyone on campus, students, faculty, and staff, to wear blue and gold tomorrow. And if you're around at 3:30, go be a part of a big mass picture. It's pretty exciting. So please consider going to Chamberlain Field at 3:30 tomorrow in your blue and gold. And definitely don't wear red, because that's Jacksonville State. So does anyone have any other announcements? Yes.
Could I at least introduce George Hine? He's the interim dean of arts and sciences. Arts and science folks may have met him. Many probably have not met him, but George Hine was with us this year.
Welcome to Dean Hine. Anything else? All right, so I would like to adjourn. Do we have a move for adjournment? Ready? Mike Bell, do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Great, thank you. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Please take cookies and brownies.